Hello everyone, Wallace Konde here, and you're listening to Honey at Home. Honey at Home. Too much staying at home recently. Yeah, so as I'm stuck in The Hague, I decided to, hey, yo, it's a great opportunity for me to just decide to show you around The Hague. Let's get started. The Hague, the administrative capital of the Netherlands. At least that's what I would call it because, hey, all the governmental ministries, all the parliament, all the stuff is here. Even the king lives nearby. So, yo, like, The Hague should be a proper capital, I would say. Not Amsterdam. No, never Amsterdam. The Hague really gives you the vibe that there is a city for like richer people, and I think it mainly gets you the vibe of this class chic and to a certain extent the place for older people to live. I think this is also the vibe. That's why there are not so many like events happening as in Rotterdam or Amsterdam, where the crowd is just more hip. And I think in The Hague, it's more about the classy people in the suits drinking whiskey at their gentlemen clubs, something like this. Definitely, it's not like every single person living here is like that, but it's just, it's the vibe that it gets because obviously all the embassies are here, ministries are here, so the crowd here is more like that political elite living in here. Living in here, or at least working in here, does the infrastructure around kind of giving you this feeling. I personally still kind of think that The Hague is kind of boring. There are still some places to go and some things to do, which I probably started to enjoy more than I used to because I used to live in Rotterdam before. Yeah, I think there are few great places to go in The Hague, and like The Hague itself, it's not that big city. It's kind of easy to get on a bike everywhere around if you go from the west to the eastern part, and also all these small towns that now became a part of the municipality of The Hague, they're like super close to each other, so you don't really need to spend a lot of time trafficking it, I would say. And the Netherlands is just really the country where you don't need the car to get anywhere that you want. Everything is so kind of close, and even getting on a train will allow you to, like, from here to Amsterdam is like 50 minutes, to Rotterdam 20, and it's pretty cheap. It's like you pay 10 euros, trains go on every half an hour, 20 minutes. So come on, you're like in some big megapolis, you need to spend hour and a half to get from like the outskirts to the city center. So here you can just spend even less time to get to the city center of another bigger city and maybe have something more exciting happening there. So I think that's why probably living in kind of The Hague never was a huge issue for me, because everything is kind of close anyway. If I want to go to an event in Rotterdam or Amsterdam, I can just quickly grab a train and go there. But obviously, I'm probably painting the picture in too negative colors. There are obviously things to do in The Hague. So let's see, what can we do? First of all, The Hague is the only city out of the biggest one, like of the Randstad, which is at the seaside. Randstad is basically four main cities of the Netherlands, so to say, or historically they've been the most meaningful ones, which are Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Utrecht, and The Hague. The Hague is the only one on the coast. So what made it on the coast? It was the Zeveningen, which used to be its own smaller town where the port is. That's where all the fishermen used to live, and now it's kind of a more elite and rich part of The Hague. So, there is also this historic separation in The Hague from the street of Land van Merdewoord, which is actually now more to the north. So, the hilarious part of it, that what is now considered to be a city center was actually in the poor part from that street, because that street was technically separating rich from the poor, and everything that closer to the coast from that street was, the person who lives there would be called Hagenaar, and the person below the street would be called Hagenees. I personally don't think that still holds. The Hague has definitely been developing, and I think you guys also may have seen that the definition of the center in the bigger megapolis, which is on the towns that continue to develop, it's just shifting. Like the center of attention is like shifting, and the center becoming bigger and maybe just moving somewhere as well. So some of the districts that used to be considered outskirt, now they also becoming like a center, and I think it's happening the same in The Hague. So I am Hagenese, but I live like 20 minutes walking from the city center, maybe even less. So I would never say that I am like living in a terrible neighborhood or anything like this, because like I'm super close to the city center. So this Heffingen, what can you see on this Heffingen besides the sea? Like the sea itself it's a North Sea. You'll be able to see some boats on the sea, and those are usually fisherman boats. What am I calling them? It's like this huge boats that grab fish from the North Sea and they're being delivered to the port. And then you can go to Simonis, one of the most famous Dutch fish restaurants, seafood restaurants, and yeah, you can grab the fish, fresh fish, straight out of boats, straight out of the sea, and eat it there. No, they didn't pay me for that. I actually got sick when I ate there, but I don't think it's about the quality of the food, more about my stomach. So on the Heffingen, there is still a beautiful old building of the Kurhaus. Kurhaus basically can be translated as a cure house. Wow, what a translation. Obviously, there are a lot of beach bars at the beach of the Heffingen, and there was even a place called Zwartepad, which is like a bit further from the Kurhaus. The Kurhaus is considered to be like the center of attention where most of the tourists would go. That's why most of the stuff is happening there. Most of the restaurants are there. All the beach bars, they're actually just along the coast, so you can get almost anywhere and you'll stumble upon one of those beach bars. So if you opt for a drink, you can go pretty much anywhere. There is also the nude beach close to Zwartepad, so be careful. Obviously, if you go further from the Zwartepad, further from the bars, it gets a bit more wild, and you won't see any other bars there. You basically, there will only be sand and the sea, so the classic way to spend your time. We stopped with Heffingen, but I think there is a pearl of the beaches on the seaside. There is also Daunen, which is like Dutch dunes. It basically on the left side, so if the port is here, this is where all the stuff is happening, with this happening, getting on the beach and all the other things. And then there are Daunen, which is dunes, and this is more where the wilderness is kind of being preserved, so there is more like a park right next to it, and there are also fewer people coming there because it's not as straightforward. There are also nothing cool in terms of architecture. It's less touristic, so people who know what's up with Daunen, they just go there. So if you guys opt to more of a quieter experience, less touristic place, then Daunen is really the place to go next. So if I'm talking about all the Hague monuments and memorable buildings which people would need to visit, like must visit, then I really need to mention the Peace Palace. It's probably one of the things that make The Hague really famous around the world, where I'm not sure how it's really called, but it's like the most supreme court ever, where usually all this war criminals being prosecuted, and it's actually being in the place in The Hague, in the place called the Peace Palace, because what? All these prosecutions are to bring peace. Exactly. I think it's not really allowed to get a ticket to get inside, but there is like a small free museum about the history of the place where you can visit and check out. The whole Peace Palace thing is surrounded by the Heffeningse bosjes, which is the forest of Scheveningen, like forests, because it's bosjes is like small forest in Dutch. And it's kind of surrounded this, so if you're into nature, you can get out there and walk around, you can breathe some fresh air, and then if you walk, and you'll see Madurodam. Madurodam is a famous open-air museum of Dutch famous monuments, all the famous palaces, Erasmus Bridge, Parliament, all this stuff is basically in the small form in Madurodam. I haven't went there, but my parents did, and they actually enjoyed, so maybe it's also gonna be something for you. Talking about the other places which worth visiting, besides just walking around in the city center, which I think it's a must thing to do for every trip where you're going, because that's where the life is happening. That's where usually most of the beautiful architectural buildings are. Yes, they are probably most touristic places, because most of the tourists would also go to the city center, but this is also holds true for The Hague. Bunch of the older houses, more beautiful, not that typical houses. Yeah, they're kind of typical for Europe, but they're not typical per se for the Dutch architectural style, are situated in the city center, so you're definitely more than welcome to go there and to check that out. While you're in the city center, you'll definitely must visit Parliament, which is both Binnenhof and Buitenhof. You won't miss Parliament if you're a city center. There is like this huge pond with a fountain, and right next to it there is this building, which is the Parliament. You can actually go inside, not inside of the building, but inside of the inner court, inner yard, and you'll be able to check out what's happening. And sometimes some of the people saying that you are actually able to see what is happening inside through the window. Well, isn't that cool? I think it's quite cool. There is the mysterious island in the pond right next to the Parliament. You wonder why it's there? I also did. Basically, the island was made artificially in order to protect the king from either possible observers and spies, or from possible assassins who may decide to kill anyone through the window. I'm not sure how trees are actually pretty much protecting anyone from not looking through the window, but that's what they thought is would be possible to do. So we walked through the Parliament, and then we went to the Plein. And Plein, it's a really basic name for quite a basic place. Plein in Dutch means square, and yes, indeed, it is a square. And this is the square where there are also a bunch of other places, like the bars and restaurants are in this place. So there are mainly two places that remained alive in the evening in The Hague, because most of the times the city gets empty after 8. There are two places where it's still life happening, and one is Plein because there are bars, and another one is Grottemarkt because there are, bars as well. Also, we are in The Hague, and of course the royal family lives here, and there are a bunch of palaces that are owned by a royal family, or at least they used to live there. I'm not sure if they still are. I'm not really that interested in royal family, to be honest. But there is Noordeinde Palace, there is Haustenbos, yes, the house in the forest. There is another house that was owned by the royal family, and now there is one of the greatest museums that I honestly really enjoyed. It is Asher Het Palace, and it used to be a royal house. It was used to be like a winter residency of the royal family, and now they made a museum of graphic artist Asher. Out of the other museums that you probably should consider visiting, besides Asher Het Palace, there is Maurits House, which is right next to the Parliament, and it's famous that it has works of the most famous Dutch painters. I think it has Vermeer, Van Gogh, and Rembrandt. Not sure about Van Gogh, because he is for sure in the Amsterdam. There is the whole museum that's called Van Gogh Museum. Besides that, and there is Voorlinden Museum, which is modern art, contemporary art museum, which usually is pretty interesting to go there. There is Lohman Museum, which was a private collection of certain rich guy who was collecting so many cars, vintage cars. So he opened the museum, and now it's called Lohman Museum. And if you're into old cars, just check it out. Besides that, there is another great place to go, which I personally have never been, but I know it's really suitable for kids, which is Museum, and I think it's nature and science museum, which I think it's quite common for most of the countries, so you probably have seen something like this somewhere else already, but it's one of the biggest museums in The Hague, so it's worth mentioning, I guess. And of course, I personally also was interested in contemporary art. I visited the art festival that was held in The Hague last year, and part of the exhibition was in the Seaside fabric, which it's like all these hipsters, they decided to take the old factory building and turn it into something cool, like the exhibition center or something like this. So that's what happened to Seaside fabric, and there were a bunch of the interesting contemporary stuff. I'm not sure if there is exhibition that is constant. I suppose most of them are just temporary, but check it out. And I think just overall The Hague is quite a green city, so there are a lot of parks, which I think is great. You can always have a short walk, you can always have a run there, you can always just sit on the bench, look at the pond, feed some ducks, and contemplate about your life. Isn't that what we all live for? Well, so I think this is pretty much it. I may have missed something, but I think I already mentioned most of the things. And of course, I think the whole beauty of The Hague is really that you are not visiting this certain things, certain sites separately. You just should walk around the city, and I think it holds true for every other city where you will decide to go. You really need to go through it, you really need to feel it, you need to breathe it, you need to understand the atmosphere and what the city lives about. And I know that sometimes it's pretty hard to understand it within a couple of days, but try it. I think that's about it. I pretty much enjoy living in The Hague after all, because of it being kind of close to everything. And I think I started to appreciate less dynamic environment which The Hague has, and it's kind of more quiet than Rotterdam or Amsterdam is. I think definitely more quiet than Amsterdam. I think anything is more quiet than Amsterdam. I hope you guys liked the video. I really made it with all the love I have in my heart to this city. And if you have any thoughts, if you've been here or if you are from here, punish me in the comments for me not being respectful enough to this city. Maybe I just missed something, but I'm just a freaking expat who doesn't know anything about the proper Hagenaar or Hagenese lifestyle. Sorry. Alright. Bye.